Hello everyone. In this video, we will learn about the theory of psychoanalysis as given and practiced by Sigmund Freud. This theory of psychoanalysis became the basis of personal counseling and helped in the growth of other modern day psychiatric theories. Therefore, this theory of psychoanalysis takes a very significant place in the subject of education. This video will help you not only to develop a detailed understanding of Freud's theory of psychoanalysis, but I hope that it will also help you create a stronger base for dealing with the other topics that come under educational psychology. So before we start learning about psychoanalysis, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. First, let us get introduced to the creator or founding father of psychoanalysis. Yes, Freud is also known as the father of psychoanalysis. Please make a note of this. We may get matching based questions about this in NTA UGC NET Paper 2 education. So, who was Freud? Freud was a renowned Austrian psychologist and operated around the end of 1800s to 1920s. He was born in Austria and his parents were German. But he built his career in Vienna. Sigmund Freud primarily worked as a neurologist and as a psychotherapist, and he gave birth to psychoanalysis. Just like I said earlier, even though Freud was born in Austria, he built his career in Vienna. He worked at the University of Vienna as a psychologist. And he was very significantly influenced by the theory of Charles Darwin. As most of you might already know, Charles Darwin was a renowned naturalist and is very famous for his theory of evolution. So, Charles Darwin influenced Sigmund Freud, which means that Freud was also exceptionally scientific and practical in his approach. Now that we have talked about Sigmund Freud as an individual, let us understand in details Freud's theory of psychoanalysis. Sigmund Freud's theory of psychoanalysis is also known as the theory of psychosexual development. This theory is a beautiful blend of both theory and practice. Because theoretically, psychosexual development gives us a legit theory using which we can understand and explain the human psyche. On the other hand, we get a method using which we can study human behavior more closely. We can develop a possible reason behind every human action or behavior. Therefore, we can actually use this theory of Sigmund Freud as a process of psychiatric therapy for the mentally ill and unstable. And this psychiatric therapy is popularly known as psychoanalysis. In the theory of psychoanalysis, Freud explains the structure of human psyche by dividing it into two elements. The first element is called levels of mind. Here we come to know about the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious levels of human mind. The conscious level of mind is the first level which deals with our present sense of awareness. If we look at our mind area wise, then the conscious level of our mind takes very little area. Then we have the subconscious level, which is also known as preconscious. This is the space which is just immediately out of our awareness zone. The subconscious level falls within the zone where we can bring any of the thoughts and ideas or memories from our subconscious to conscious level by simply recalling it. And then we have the unconscious level of human mind. This is the biggest area of our mind which lies beyond our awareness. We cannot just recall anything out of our conscious mind whenever we want. After the levels of the mind, we have the elements of personality. The first one is id. Id is the first element of personality which develops in an individual. It develops very early. Freud himself believed that children are born with a sense of id. Id is guided by pleasure principle and understands no logic or reason. Id wants what it wants. Then comes the superego. It is the exact opposite of id and forces us to follow every rule and regulations. It is the principle of morality within every individual which wants us to do everything which is morally good. And at times it forces us to do good which is too good for our own liking. And finally, we have the ego, which works as a moderator between the absolute selfishness of id and the total selflessness of superego. The element of ego gives a logical sense of balance to our judgment. If you look at this picture, you will get to see that here only a little bit part of our ego and a little bit part of our superego lies within the zone of consciousness. Then a bit of our ego and a bit of our superego lies in the zone of pre-consciousness or the zone of subconsciousness. Then a little bit of our ego lies within the zone of unconsciousness, but the total of our id, the absolute of our id and the most of our superego lies within the zone of unconsciousness. So this is a diagram of an iceberg which is used very often and very commonly to describe the structure of psyche as given to us by Sigmund Freud. Now let us look at the principle of psychodynamics. So psychodynamics is basically the study of behavioral process. And this behavioral process, as described by Sigmund Freud, is guided by two instincts. What are instincts basically? So instincts are a natural pattern of behavior within human beings. So Sigmund Freud tells us that every human being has two basic instincts in their life, and that is responsible for their behavioral process. The first instinct that Freud talks of is the life instinct. So the life instinct is the general driving force of life and it deals with everything that is positive. Basically, life instinct is the positive source of energy within every individual. And the main aim of life instinct is survival and the propagation of species through reproduction. We as human beings, because of our life instinct, want to keep on living, and at the same time, we want to reproduce our species to increase our population. And this sexual drive, which aims at propagation of species, the sexual drive which makes us want to reproduce, is called as libido by Sigmund Freud. And when this libido is suppressed, it gives rise to a sense of cruelty, a sense of aggression, and a sense of destruction. So when the sexual energy, this pent up sexual energy is suppressed, we get frustrated. And due to this frustration, we become very cruel and we become very aggressive. And we want to destroy everything that is around us. And that is referred to as the death instinct by Sigmund Freud. So the life instinct and the death instinct are the true two primary forces which makes us behave in certain ways that we behave. Life instinct and death instincts are the principles of psychodynamics which is responsible for the behavioral pattern within every individual. In the infantile sexuality, we will discuss the various stages of psychosexual development as given to us by Sigmund Freud. The first stage that we have is the oral stage, which starts from the birth of a child and continues till 2 years of age. This is the time when pleasure is derived from mouth by the child through action of sucking. Then we have the anal stage, which starts from 2 years of age and continues till 3 years. During this time, pleasure is derived from the anus by a child because the child becomes aware of their bowel movements. Then comes the phallic stage, which starts around 3 years of age and continues till 6 years of age. During this time, the child becomes aware of the pleasures derived from genitals as the erogenous zones. They develop an understanding about sexuality and they become aware about genders. This phallic stage is associated with Oedipus complex, Electra complex, and deprivation complex. Under the Oedipus complex, the boy child starts to develop attractive feelings for his mother and as a result develops hatred towards his father. Under the Electra complex, a girl child starts to develop attraction for her father and as a result she hates her mother. And in most of the situation it is seen that in the Electra complex, the girl child starts to copy her mother in order to gain attention from her father. Then comes the deprivation complex, and under this, a girl child starts to hate her mother because she believes that it is because of her mother that she was not able to be born as a boy. Then we have the latency period. The latency period starts at around 6 years of age for girls and around 7 years of age for boys, and it continues till 12 years of age. During this time, the children develop a sense of disgust for the people of their opposite gender. And they start to associate more with the people of their same gender. Boys associate with boys and girls associate with girls. During this time, the sexuality becomes dormant. The sexuality becomes latent, and that is why it is called as the latency period. And finally, we have the genital stage. It starts when the child reaches puberty and it can continue throughout their life. During this time, the child becomes aware of their sexual desires and the process of stimulation of genitals. They develop a sense of self-beautification. They start to beautify themselves in order to attract people from their opposite genders. Now that we have looked into all the significant elements of psychoanalysis as given to us by Sigmund Freud, let us talk about how libido is responsible for the development of personality within individuals. Sigmund Freud himself believed that libido is one of the strongest determining factors in the development of personality of individuals. Because when the libido starts to flow outward, it results in the growth of a personality which is absolutely normal and natural. But when the libido grows inward, it flows inward, it results into self-love, which leads into self-indulgence, and gradually it leads to narcissism or self-obsession. When the libido is blocked and becomes stagnant, it causes fixation at a stage in the infantile sexuality, and this gradually becomes a future obsession. If the libido is blocked and it starts to flow backward, it results into regressed personality. And when the libido is blocked by the authority of superego, that is the morality principle, people tend to develop anxiety, and because of this, they become neurotic and start to show neurotic behavior. And when the libido is deflected, because sexual desires is frowned upon in most of the societies, so if it is deflected, the person starts to see gratification through ways which are socially accepted. So these are the various processes through which libido tends to develop the personality within individuals. Now let us quickly talk about psychoanalysis as a therapy. Sigmund Freud gives us 4 steps using which a psychiatrist can help in the psychoanalysis of an individual. The first step is the establishment of rapport, which is also called as transference by Sigmund Freud. So here the psychiatrist tries to establish a very friendly relationship with the individual. And after this comes the stage of analysis, and this analysis can be done in 3 different ways. The first way is the free association. Under free association, the psychiatrist leaves the individual to talk in whichever way they want to talk, and all their conversations are recorded and later on analyzed. Then comes the dream analysis, under which the psychiatrist tries to develop an understanding of the dormant unconscious mind of the individual. And in doing so, they try to discuss the various dreams and analyze the various dreams that this individual has been having. And finally comes the analysis of the daily psychopathology. Using this, the behavioral pattern of the individual is understood depending on the day-to-day activities of the individual. After the phase of analysis is completed, then comes the process of synthesis, and during this, the psychiatrist restores the balance of the psyche of the individual. And finally comes the stage where the rapport that was developed between the psychiatrist and the individual is broken so that the individual can start to function as a legitimate adult in the normal society. Now, towards the end of our video, we will talk about the implications of psychoanalysis in education. That how psychoanalysis is influential from the perspective of education. Psychoanalysis emphasizes the importance of good education and healthy environment in the early years of life. Before the psychoanalysis occurred, people used to believe that it is okay to treat children whichever way we want to treat them because they do not understand anything. But with the advent of psychoanalysis, we came to know that all these early childhood experiences develop the character, the personality of individuals. Then psychoanalysis is important because it talks of the importance of good and positive sex education among children. Psychoanalysis also helps in making the curriculum such that it helps in releasing the pent up energy among children. And finally, the concept of the unconscious mind, which we get from the theory of psychoanalysis, helps us to understand the maladaptive behavior of various individuals and gives us a way to deal with all these maladaptive people. This is all for this video. I hope you have understood whatever we have discussed. Please like our video and subscribe to our channel and let us know your opinion in the comment section. Thank you so much.